Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Simsbury Planning Commission, June 26th, 2018 meeting to order at 7:03 PM. Today we have a Boy Scout in the audience, and I checked with him to see if he wanted to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll just let everyone know that he's here fulfilling the requirements for Communications Merit Badge. So I'm going to ask Joseph Calamitas, close enough, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay, next on the agenda, roll call and potential appointment of alternates. So let's see, I'm going to call the names. Please say here if you're here. Elizabeth Burt.
Here.
Holly Bem.
Here.
Aaron Levitt-Smith.
Here.
Gary Lungarini. Alan Needham. David Blumey.
Here.
Rich Cortez.
Here.
William Rice. Here. Craig McCormack. Absent. So we have, let's see, Holly, Aaron, that's 2. Dave is 3, Rich is 4, Bill is 5. We have 5 regular members here. That means we have room for 1 alternate.
I'm not a regular member.
Oh, you're an alternate?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, to constitute a full commission, I would,
I'm also an alternate.
yeah, I'm gonna promote you to a regular member tonight, Elizabeth, and Rich, you as well.
Yep, very good.
Okay? As we all know, 6 is the statutory number of regular commissioners, and we have the option to fill empty seats with alternates. So we have a full board tonight. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, approval of the minutes from the April 24th, 2018 regular meeting. Okay, and our secretary's not here tonight, so I will lead us through. Okay, everyone have the minutes? Tuesday, April 24th, 2018. Any comments on page 1?
Line 13, small point, I'm not Mrs. Burt, that was my mother, I'm Ms. or Dr.
Okay, which one would you prefer?
Ms.
Ms. Burt. Mrs. Bem, comment?
That's my maiden name, so that would mean I'm married to my dad.
How would you like your
Ms.
salutation? Ms.
Or just anything. Hey, you.
We got it. Any other comments or on page 1?
Oh, by the way, I recuse. I wasn't in the meeting anyway.
Okay.
But you can still make a comment on your Ms.
Any-
Oh, yeah. I can-
Any comments on page 2? Okay. Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the Tuesday, April 24th Planning Commission meetings as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes as amended, please say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
Abstaining.
Holly Bem abstains. Okay, motion passes and the minutes are accepted. Thank you. Okay, on to old business. We have no public hearings open, nor do we have any old applications. However, we do, let's see, no new applications, but we do have a referral from the Zoning Board of Appeals on ZBA application number 18-02 of Galvin Properties 5, or Roman numeral 5 LLC owner for a use variance to permit diesel engine repair on the property located at 38 Walcott Road. and that's Assessor's Map I-03, Block 439, Lot 010. Current zone I-1. Public hearing is set to open 6/27. And we have been asked to take action on our referral to support a meeting, I think, on tomorrow.
Tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow, okay? So we're going to have to hash this one out today. Okay? So, yeah, any members of the public here to represent this application? Seeing none, okay, so, Mr. Abbott, please have the minutes reflect that there was no one present to answer questions of the commission. Okay, so I'll open up the floor for comments. Anyone want to start?
I just want to be sure I understand, because when I read this, I was trying to, the map here, so Wolcott Road, Wolcott Woods.
So the airport should be out beyond there.
Beyond
It is
this way.
beyond.
So
Would
where,
you like to
Here's
see
the bike-
a
This is the bike path.
satellite map?
Yes.
yeah,
Put that on
because thank you, only because and I should have done
the
that, and I
maps.
didn't think of that.
So here's Hot Meadow.
Oh, that is Hot Meadow, okay, so it really is close to, okay, so the farm is up this way? the
Yep.
Community farm,
Right.
okay, so this is really right around the corner from like Doggy in the Window,
This line of trees is a street,
okay,
and that's the property you're talking about. There's the
Doggy in
the Wolcott Woods with the
sorry.
half moon development there.
and
So
Wolcott
this
Woods
is the property right
is houses
Right
or
there.
condos?
It looks like
Yeah,
condos.
Apartments
Condos.
and condo. I think they're apartments when
Okay,
I was
but
over
they're-
there.
So is the dump further up to the
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then
the community farm, and, yeah.
And
Because
several
you-
industrial.
So
Yeah.
here's Hop
That's right.
Meadow.
There's
bit of
Doggy in the
industrial.
Window. Okay.
Okay, so there's the airport's right over here.
Yep.
There's the farm, Herman Drive over here.
Yeah,
So we're talking about back here.
back here,
This
close
tree line,
to.
yeah,
Okay, yep,
close
yep,
to Hop Meadow.
yep.
This tree line is actually a road.
That's
Okay.
actually the
bike-
rails
bike
and trails.
path.
The bike-
Oh, yeah,
path,
yeah,
bike
okay.
path.
Bike
So
path.
these are the existing buildings?
Yes.
I think you're talking about this
This.
building over here, tucked in
And that's
there.
the-
I'm not sure about that
And
one.
that, is that a house? Okay. Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. Thank you, Rich.
I think the other set of buildings is the saw sharpening. place.
Okay. And so from what I understand, it's, they put this on the property back in the late 80s, right? So, but the zoning only, it doesn't allow, so they're asking for it. So right now, even though there's really no residential, it's not zoned for him to be able to do this now, so they're,
Yeah, it's zoned industrial, and he wants to operate a business, which is considered
not industrial. I mean, that's, because that's what,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, with regards to the industrial zone, there's a list of permitted uses and uses via special exception. His proposal to run a repair shop is not one of the listed items that can be undertaken as a business in that industrial zone. And the way the zoning regulations are written, they're permissive in nature, so if they're not specifically mentioned in the regulations, they are prohibited by the nature of the regulations. This type of use is allowed in other zones in town.
right,
We
B12.
have a correspondence from Robin Newton in the file. where,
From,
Robin,
Where's,
That was the
oh, right
cover-
here,
cover
Newton, the
page.
cover page, yeah. Yeah, so it's the B2 zone, which would allow him to do that. Okay.
I have a question, Jamie. It says here they're applying for a use variance, but the memo says that it's only allowed as a special exception.
Right.
In the B2 zone. How do those two things interact?
in the business zone in a special exception,
Yeah, is this in fact a special exception, or is it a variance?
Well, he's asking for a variance.
They are seeking a variance to be granted to operate a use that is not currently allowed under the zoning regulations in that industrial district.
And under what grounds are variances granted?
Under some of the case law that exists in Connecticut that I'm aware of as a planner, the applicant has to demonstrate they have an exceptional hardship and that their property is like no other within the zone or surrounding area, and that a hardship is not financial. So there are other industrially zoned properties that are similarly zoned in the area that aren't allowed this use.
So you were saying, rather than a variance from zoning, they would need to ask for what from the Board of Appeals?
There are kind of legislative authority is given to the town's zoning commission
Right.
to develop regulations, divide the town into districts, and within those districts have uses that are allowed and potentially uses that are not allowed. That legislative authority lies with the zoning commission. Just like the planning commission has legislative authority to create your own regulations, put into your regulations what you deem appropriate, and then you act administratively on applications. There is no appeals board for planning, but you have that ability to create your regulations. Zoning has the ability to create your regulations. There are in essence two ways to override that or differ from that, and that would be to go to the zoning commission and request a text amendment, change the regulations to allow the use where the commission would be using their discretion given to them under statute legislatively to determine whether it was appropriate or not. In that sequence, they would also refer the matter to the planning commission for a referral with regards to consistency with the POCD. That's very clear under statute, very clear in the zoning regulations. They also could potentially try to rezone that property in some manner to a different zone that allows that use, or rezone it, and, they could create another zone that allows that use.
So our mission isn't really to determine whether they get the it's really to see if this,
It's really a
Request.
process-based.
but really whether or not this request overall to do the business is in line with the POCD.
And in line with the POCD.
So we're not really here to debate whether or not he should get a variance or not, or change or everything.
I believe that is not your purview.
Right, that's, okay.
Okay.
The-
Okay.
Kind of the administrative side and the POCD side. that
Okay.
There is, in your POCD,
Right.
it kind of lays out some of the administrative and legislative powers
Yep.
of commissions and boards.
So even though he's arguing that he has a hardship, that is not part of our consideration?
No.
That is the
Okay.
consideration for the zoning board.
Okay.
The zoning commission did review this past month at their meeting. Mr. Rice does have the meeting minutes from that. Instead of paraphrasing their motion, Bill, if you didn't mind reading that.
Okay.
What is the building being used for today?
Storing equipment.
It was a contractor's shop, and the
Excavation.
Some
business.
pottery business in there.
varying businesses right now, and part of the building's vacant.
Okay, so from the minutes of the zoning commission meeting, Chairman Ryan stated the board has been forwarded a referral from the zoning board of appeals for the application of a use variance. Chairman Ryan referenced the staff report prepared by Robin Newton concerning the request. Okay, so we have the same referral. There was a motion made by Mr. Gray to advise the zoning board of appeals that the zoning commission determined that the application before them, a use variance, should be handled as an application for a text amendment and/or zone change versus a use variance, which is prohibited by our zoning regulations and undermines the legislative authority given to the zoning commission under our regulations and state statute. So let me read that again.
Yeah.
Mr. Gray made a motion to advise the Zoning Board of Appeals that the zoning commission determined that the application before them for a use variance should be handled as an application for a text amendment and/or a zone change versus a use variance, which is prohibited by our zoning regulations and undermines the legislative authority given to the zoning commission under our regulations and state statute. Mr. Doyle seconded the motion. The motion passed unanimously.
And yet we just said we're not allowed to comment on that. That's not our purview. Our purview is a POCD and how this affects a POCD.
Well,
And they don't have the text amendment, so they're not proposing.
A text amendment.
Right, they're not proposing language for a text amendment.
Just for clarity, the zoning commission's review was based on, as a zoning commission, they have the legislative authority to create regulations associated with the use of property, as well as how properties are districted. That's, I think, why they weighed in that manner. The planning commission doesn't have legislative authority over the creation of districts
Right.
or uses on property.
Correct.
You have POCD and the division of land. So again, the different hats that
Yep.
they're wearing.
So would the type of comment that we might make would be simply to refer implementation of the POCD on page 128 here, where we say we involve other town organizations, this is not in our purview, we recommend that they apply to the appropriate party. However, the activity does seem to promote business within the community, which is in another part of our POCD. Is that an appropriate thing to say, or is that just too much?
I think that's too much.
What I would say, I agree with the last part of that. I'm wondering if we look at this to say, regardless of whether they can do it or not, if they could, right, what we think about this, and then we give that information, and then given that information, that would go into the zoning board's decision on whether or not to move ahead. Because if we say absolutely not, this doesn't meet the POCD, then my guess would be they might not be as apt to make a text amendment or change the zoning. But if we said, this might be, then they might take that in consideration. That's how I kind
Yeah.
of see it. Do you know?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think we make
yeah.
our decision based on, do we think this meets the POCD? And then we leave it up to the legislative authority, the power, to say, okay, we'll take this when we make our decision whether or not we're going to do a text amendment or a
Right.
zoning change, right? Did I get that right?
And given
Fair
the
assessment, okay.
wonderful format of this excellent new version of the POCD, the cameras all record what a fine job that commission, whoever.
It's like product placement.
Whichever commission did this should be so commended. No, but anyway, this is a lot easier to find.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so much.
All right.
There we go.
But are we all in
9.1.
agreement, are we in agreement that that would be the way to proceed?
Yes,
I think
yes,
first-
that is the way we have to proceed.
Okay,
And moving right along on that, I would like to refer to us on section 9.1, promote economic development in Simsbury in order to provide jobs, goods, services, and net tax revenue. And I just want to say something, as a little business owner that almost got strangled this week over a lot of government bureaucracy that says, on one hand, we want to promote business, and on the other hand, we're going to dump so much stuff on you that you little company can't manage it all, that, promoting economic growth, I think, is an important thing, and I just hope the other commissions will get their little procedures in place to make sure we don't discourage business and turn the business away.
So, when I was reviewing the POCD, I'm also pro-business. In that same section, it says that we should promote economic development. As long as it doesn't happen at the expense of what we want to protect. Okay? So if we go back to what we want to protect,
Okay, but
And
where's
where do
the
you see
wording that you're
that?
referring to?
9.1.B, 3 and 4.
Support the startup of new enterprises.
Yeah, but where's the
I
caveat
don't see
saying,
your,
caveat?
I'm pretty sure it's in there.
It says
Unless-
maintain
unless I went off the
positive
reservation.
relationships.
well, it's
retain
not that
existing
one.
Businesses, support the startup of new enterprises, and seek to attract new businesses to Simsbury. So it's right now saying, yeah, let's get this new little business in there and make them successful. There's no, oh, by the way, don't do it if,
I mean, unless
Okay?
it's, maybe it's on the other side.
you know,
Don't screw up the scenery.
Give me the reference again.
I have written down 9.1.B, 3 and 4, which we just looked at.
That's
We
on
says
just
support
read,
the
we just read
startup.
out loud.
Yeah.
page number 90. What is that?
So, oh, maybe
82.
maybe this was my commentary.
But, okay, so read it again, though, so. So it might have been based
I
on,
have, you want the POCD right here?
I have it
We
right
have
here.
it.
I can
Yeah,
read it if
we
you
have it.
out loud again. So, B, all right, 9.1,
Should have brought my.
B, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is, 1 is maintain positive relationships with local businesses. 2, retain existing businesses and support their growth and expansion in Simsbury. 3, support the startup of new enterprises in Simsbury. And 4, seek to attract new businesses to Simsbury. And as a
Okay,
member,
so-
a former member of the Economic Development Task
so you're
Force.
reading from here, maybe.
Economic,
Yeah, on page 80.
it's tough with all the
Page
regulations.
80, paragraph 3. But residents have also indicated they don't want economic development for the sake of taxes if it detracts from or dilutes community character. Simsbury has to attract the right kind of development that fits with the kinds of things Simsbury has to offer. Proximity to customers, suppliers, partners, investors, highly educated, blah, blah, blah.
So would this
That was
detract
language.
from that neighborhood?
Well,
There are some-
Section
Yeah, it's
5,
industrial.
Section 5 talks about what we want to protect. And that's why I was hoping there would be someone to support or at least respond to questions from the related to the application. You know, we want to protect surface and groundwater.
Yep.
What provisions do they have there? We want to protect other significant water-related resources, and there was reference to wetlands that were included in the property, and as a matter of fact, 7 feet of fill was brought in to bring it out of the flood zone. Also, we want to protect the air quality, although the POCD is not really all that strong on air quality, but I would be curious to know what type of measures that this business expects to employ to minimize any of the diesel exhaust that could come from starting these engines, if indeed they start them when they work on them.
All the
That's
work
it.
is being done inside, by the way, so they have to do something or they would
But there's no,
fixation.
Holly, there's no one here to answer that question.
Right.
So I'm going
All
to
right,
assume
so
that,
let me ask you a question. Why are you assuming that this operation is going to be so much more damaging to the environment than all the other industrial businesses surrounding it?
I'm not, I'm taking it as it's the face value of the application.
Mr. Chairman, if I just may, and again, typically things like this, when you get into uses, are handled via the text amendment. Because questions like you just brought up, or even Holly in your discussion, a text amendment would answer questions. Because that text amendment potentially would say automobile repair or equipment repair is allowed in the zone with the following provisions. All material in process or finished goods are stored within a building and not outside of a building. That there are no fuels or if fuels or liquids are stored on site, they are stored in a certain manner. When you just go to a commission to, in essence, exempt yourself from the regulations, that takes away from a commission's ability to act legislatively and create the regulations that balance Section 913B with statements on page 80.
Okay, so Jamie, does that
That's
mean?
where, I think that's where the zoning commission was.
So does that mean our zoning regulations in the zones that do permit this kind of activity have all that written in? So it would have been a cut and paste for him?
And certain, they're carried via the special exception process, so they can build those criteria in depending on its location. You know, again, you put a facility like this on 100 acres in the middle of it, you may not need certain provisions. You put it on a small piece of property where there's potential visual intrusion, they may want different parameters associated with that. That's a legislative action of a text amendment, as well as the permitting process with the special exception. The ZBA removes this application from that process. And again, that's where I think the zoning commission was weighing in on. I think your comments are very germane to economic development and promoting business in town, as well as Mr. Rice's, that you don't necessarily do that at all costs, that there's a balance between promoting development, perhaps not over-regulating, but finding that balance. I don't know if you can formulate something in a motion to that effect, but that gives some potential direction. I'm in agreement with Erin that, you know, it's difficult, given the information you have, to make a definitive yes, no, don't want it, because that potentially ties your hands a little bit if someone were to propose a text amendment with certain parameters built in. I think you're weighing in on consistency with the POCD, and in the discussion, there's a balance, and there should be a regulatory process to follow to find that balance.
So we could state something like that.
Well,
I mean, we could say, you know, well,
And this is just, I'm trying to summarize some of the comments
right,
that were
but I
made.
mean, you know,
Well, how about the difference between empirical fact and speculation? We have fact and we have speculation. We have fact that a business owner is looking to expand a business into this area. We speculate that somehow this will be more damaging to the environment than an airport just located a few hundred yards away, that also has engines and fuel.
Right, so let me interject on that, because it's not speculation that the activity involving rebuilding diesel engines, using solvents to clean parts, using diesel oil, changing diesel oil, all those things, right? That's what occurs when you do that activity. That is higher risk than other activities. I'm not presupposing that they're going to contaminate the environment. What I think is important is that we say adequate measures need to be in place to prevent that from happening.
Okay.
So there's no supposition that something bad is absolutely going to happen if we allow this, if we say yes to this. It's that the processes and equipment and everything needs to be in place to prevent damage to the environment when they do this activity in that building. And the fact that it's next to wetlands makes that even more important than if it was in dry dirt. So that's, I
Rather than the
think,
presupposition that it's, yeah,
correct. So I'm hoping that bridges it for you.
okay.
Right, and I don't think we have the vehicle to express those views with the way the application is
Right.
Well,
submitted.
I think
See, I
Rich
think
did
you
a good
can.
job toward
I know.
saying, we want to
think you
promote
No, no,
economic activity on one hand, but to be in accord with the other section, there must be the assurances that, as you said, the proper storage and usage
So, Mr.
procedures
Rabbit,
will be followed.
I think you
Um,
can
I
say
think
that.
that's the right thing
with
to
a
do.
variance,
Mm-hmm.
can there be conditions associated with it?
What is being proposed before them is a use variance, whether this use will be allowed in this zone, which is presently not allowed in this zone.
And can it have conditions placed on it?
Primarily, it's a yes or no answer.
So you
That's the
can't
problem.
say,
So we have to give a yes or no answer.
No,
No, again,
zoning board of
Yeah.
appeals.
Right, they have,
Yeah. So we can weigh in, we can say just what Rich was
I
saying.
think you
I think he
can.
did a good job of it. We want to encourage economic growth, but we also want to ensure that there are safeguards appropriate safeguards as employed in the neighborhood. I mean, given
And
And
this
I-
isn't
I don't-
residential.
I don't
Chairman,
disagree.
what zoning said is that is a vehicle for them wearing their legislative hat if there was an application before them to amend their regulations.
But we're not weighing in on that.
A text amendment would apply to anybody in future who decides to do this, not just this one.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Right.
apply
Yeah.
just to this one.
But that's not for us to
Application.
take up.
That's right.
Jamie, I think what you're saying is that we just need to say whether or not this falls within the
With the
POCD or
POCD,
not.
yeah.
Am I interpreting you correctly?
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Short
Okay.
answer is yes. The discussion was there's a balance.
Right.
And how you word that in a motion, I think is
I think Rich is nearly there.
The only thing, Holly, I agree with you, I really do, but what I'm struggling with is that it doesn't say anything then, because on one hand, we say yes, and on one hand, we say no. I think we have to we have to
Well, we said
land on
yes
something.
with the provisions that there should be some safeguards in place. I think that's a conditional yes.
We could say
See,
some,
to me, that doesn't sound, I don't know, maybe it's semantics, but it just,
Yeah,
We
I think
can-
it's-
I mean, because I agree, I think and just say, we say, yes, we think this is a great idea, however, because Bill, I agree with you, and I think Rich stated it well, there isn't enough, it would be nice to be able to answer some questions about what are you gonna do with what's, and as Rich pointed out, it's wetlands, it's not dirt, I think it would be a little different, but I'd wanna know that if they were going to, I don't know, from what I'm hearing, if they did a text amendment, it wouldn't necessarily get put in the text amendment. Do you know, like,
Yeah.
the text amendment would read, would allow, or whatever. I'm not sure it would be specific. Could it be? Do you know what I'm saying? So then, how do we
I also
ensure
worry
that
about
if they were to do this business,
whether
they
we
were gonna
lose the
do it in an
opportunity if we-
environmentally friendly way? Do you know what I mean?
does the Wetlands Commission come into it in any way? If it is a wetlands next to it, do they have to approve of that use of the
That
property?
variance was already granted.
Pardon?
I think that variance was granted in the original construction of the building. They had 3 variances back in
86.
86. And one of the things was they got that 3 variances, which included, that enabled them to build the original building.
I didn't see wetlands, though. Oh, no,
Small amount of wetlands.
no, but that wetlands weighed in.
So could we make a recommendation that the proposed use is
I don't think.
relevant to the POCD's desire to attract businesses to the community, as long as environmental concerns are addressed? Also, noise concerns for the neighbors. I mean, if this guy is in the building at 2 a.m. revving up diesel engines, there are single-family houses in the area.
I think we saw that there wasn't.
Not too
There
much.
is.
Well, there's
a-
one person I actually know in that area, but.
There's a house across the road and one to the left of it. I
again,
think.
Mr. Chairman,
No, yeah,
I wanna
maybe
say
across
you're-
the road.
you're-
up to-
you're
But
really-
nobody's
my
gonna
view,
be at
just
2 o'clock
listening to the
anyway.
conversation, you're there, but you're not saying it. That-
I know.
Again, 9.1 is clear that you're promoting businesses, you're promoting the advancement of economic growth while being conscientious of the statements made on page 80 with regards to also looking at the environmental side and the comprehensive nature of how it affects the town on a development parcel by parcel.
Right, and then that's as described in section 5.
They're not, they're related in your discussion.
Yeah, see, 80 doesn't say anything about environment, though.
Well, there's that whole section on Preserving the environment and.
Yeah, fit 5.
So there, you
Yeah.
have a phrase that.
Yeah, that 80 was just some supporting.
So when they got the variance, it doesn't say anything about wetlands, but they got the variance,
They got
knowing it was in a
variance- They
floodplain
got
zone.
variances to construct a building on a very
Right.
tight lot. The variances weren't associated with the use of the building. They were associated with the development
building.
of the parcel.
Okay.
It's about placement.
So they weren't
Placement.
using
They were
toxic
dimensionally based.
material. So they weren't using toxic materials initially. They weren't getting a permit
I don't think
for
it
that.
was
No.
considered, Elizabeth.
At the time, right.
Whereas
Yeah.
diesel and
I think,
sort of stuff you'd be using.
just
would be-
reference section 5 as, in general, because there's a number of considerations in there. We want to promote economic growth as in 9.1, so long as it doesn't adversely harm the environment as in section 5. Pretty straightforward.
I
It's in
think-
keeping with 9.1, and we suggested it be also in keeping with section 5. You had it.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's actually two positives. We approve of it on the basis of 9.1, so long as it also performs the protection functions of 5.0.
Well, 5.1A3, consider impacts on water quality and public health as part of land use decisions.
Right, but all of 5 pertains to this.
Yeah, but that one in particular.
Well, we haven't done a survey of all the things on that property. We might as well just throw in 5 because we don't know what all the
Low impact.
water and air quality, as someone mentioned,
So are we at the point where we are trying to fashion the appropriate wording for our recommendation, our response to the referral?
Yes. We're looking for a motion.
so that we can discuss it further, yeah.
So moved. You got a motion.
Okay, so I'll
Go
make,
ahead.
I'll make a motion that we find the application from the Zoning Board of Appeals, number 18-02, consistent with Section 9 of the plan, the
Yes.
2017 Simsbury Plan of Conservation and Development as it relates to promotion of economic development. However, a balance needs to be struck between the economic development and the items that we want to protect as described in Section 5 of the POCD.
Instead of saying, however, a balance needs to be struck, how about as long as it maintains the safeguards
It's
called
really
out in
5.1.
5, that's more positive, right? Maintains the safeguards of what we want to protect identified in section 5.0.
It was 5.1, really.
What was your proposal, Holly?
Oh, well, all the things you first said, and then you said, however, a balance must be struck, and I was just saying, so long as it also provides safeguards for the resources we want to protect in I say all of section 5.0, but 5.1 in particular.
So the question is, will you modify your motion?
I was actually using Rich's terminology.
Jamie, did you?
I'm going to attempt to read it back.
Okay.
Okay. The commission finds that the proposed application, and we'll put the number in there, is consistent with the 2017 POCD, specifically Section 9, as it relates to the promotion of economic development. However, a balance needs to be found in association with Section 5 of the town's POCD.
Okay, so Holly, where do you want to insert?
Oh,
what- what's-
I just wanted to use Rich's excellent suggestion. I just thought, however, a balance needs to be struck is vague.
Mhm.
And I thought, so long as it safeguards the environmental concerns that we want to protect laid out in section 5.0.
POCD lays
It
out.
addresses.
That's the POCD.
It
Yeah.
addresses the safeguards.
That's good.
Well, I don't know if we wrote the safeguards in. It provides safeguards to,
I don't think there's any safeguards.
in there, no.
No.
It
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 just talks,
addresses,
it talks
yeah.
about concepts.
Yeah.
Okay?
As long as there are safeguards to protect the resources laid out that.
Identified in section 5.
Yeah, just say
The POC,
identified,
yeah.
yeah.
I just thought it was I thought, Rich,
I
you
have
can
no
chime
issue with
in,
it. We
yeah.
can, yeah, it can be wordsmith, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
I'll second that, I'll second the modified motion. If the motioner is,
Rich isn't seated, that's why
Yeah,
he's
no,
not.
Yes, he is.
Oh, you are. 'Cause I liked his wording. I was just trying to use his.
Okay,
Rich, what did you say?
I forgot my name.
Well, the
What
safeguarding.
what Mr. Bloom was suggesting was the proper wordage.
What'd you say, Dave?
it was what Holly said, except one thing is, it just says that the safeguard, not the safeguards, the as identified in the POCD section 5. So it just says identified, that's all, it didn't have to say safeguards, because the section 5 does talk about water, air, and the other resources that we are trying to protect.
All right, so let's strike the word however. We're good with the first sentence, right? And
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
consistent
Yes.
with promote economic development.
Well,
So long as it safeguards and what he said,
Yeah,
the resources
I
laid
don't
out.
want to use the word safeguards
Yeah.
because that brings in, measures to be taken. I just wanted, I want somehow for us to say
that
that
it's,
section 5 must be considered.
that it is
All right,
consistent
all right,
with
all right, that's-
section, the provisions
Do you
of
want to say
section
section
5.
5 regarding rather than just section 5?
Yeah, yeah. Section 5 is titled What We Want to Protect.
There you go.
So, okay, provided,
We need a tape recorder.
Just, if,
Yeah,
however, a balance,
No.
That's what
No,
we're
no,
killing.
no,
hang on,
you-
just bear with- however, a balance
No.
needs to be identified with regards to
No. No.
section 5.
No.
Again,
Yeah,
You
I
don't
think we'd like to
identify
say,
that.
so long as it protects what did you say, David? The things that it's identified in.
The provisions identified in section 5 of the POCD.
Right, that's good.
Yeah.
Jamie, I think she feels that the word however is strongly negative. So she's asking to strike that.
and also reference the balance. I think you don't want to,
Well, again, we're saying this so long as it protects things, as long as we consider that, I don't, the balance is
Really
almost,
what-
it's assuming that it's not going to do it anyway.
Well, really what we're asking is, we're saying it goes with the economic development, but if you go that path, to use the word, and we can change it, safeguards are they gonna do to protect the
Yeah.
environment? That's what we're
But-
really,
Okay, so,
so, do you know what I mean? So
Here it
if they wanna, let's say they go ahead and do, but there needs to be things that within, whatever, proposal, text, that satisfies our need to protect the natural resources as outlined in 5.
Rich is about to weigh in.
Okay, go ahead, Rich.
So-
Wordsmith.
strike the word safeguards out of your mind.
Right.
Completely. We needed to reference section 5 and address those issues as they need to be addressed. That's really the bottom line.
Right.
So how do you want to say that in the next sentence? That we've said 9.1 is, we agree for economic development is appropriate. So we also want to
be sure
encourage
that-
them to consider section 5 and the protection of those natural resources that are listed there.
There you go.
Okay,
not even consider.
Or,
Right, I
Right,
would
yeah,
even
yeah.
say they need to, right.
I will attempt to read back the revised motion.
Okay?
The commission finds that the proposed application is consistent with section 913B 1 through 4. So long, hang on, excuse me. The commission finds that the proposed application is consistent with section 9, and we have the references there, of the 2007 POCD as it relates to the promotion of economic development, so long as it protects the elements found in section 5.
Yes.
There you go.
As
Okay,
long,
so,
not so long.
I amend my motion to be what Mr. Rabbit just read back.
Second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Good amendment,
Oh.
Amy.
Do you want, since we said 9 is related to economic development, do we want to say what 5 is related to, in case no one has the POCD in front, so they know right away
Put in
what we're talking
parentheses the
about?
subject heading of
Yes.
What we
section.
want.
What we want to
Perfect.
protect,
Yeah.
natural resource.
Good point, Elizabeth. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion for the referral as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Jimmy, just run that by me before you just send it in, okay? So
Another
I'll
fine
ask,
team effort.
No, that was a good team effort, because
Good
that's,
team effort.
I don't intend to change anything
Need to
substantive,
type it out.
okay?
good job.
Good, okay, thank you. On to our next agenda item. We've been working on potential revisions to the subdivision regulations, and Mr. Rabbit handed out, anything changed in here, Mr. Rabbit?
Potentially clarity, as we really didn't walk through section 8 as it relates, section 8 and 9 as it relates to the site plan criteria, which would be, and I can walk you through that. Actually, we'll walk you through the beginning of the document because we haven't met in a little bit. On the first page, section 7, you have existing language in the subdivision language, existing language in the subdivision, and all those A, B, and C. If you turn the page, and if you pulled the staple off, you would see them side by side. In section 7A, we were recommending no change. And section B, we were looking to delete section B, existing, and replace with the following. And also in section C, delete that section, because there's nothing in state statute that authorizes you to mandate a preliminary application to you. So in essence, C gets eliminated, and some of the aspects contained in C, we rolled into B, but that is at the applicant's option to have a preliminary hearing and discussion with you. And that's a non-binding discussion, both on your behalf and the applicant's behalf. And we clarified what what your expectations were for information to be submitted to have a poignant discussion regarding the application, that it's not just the back of the napkin sketch. That there should be sufficient information there.
So the proposed is that we're recommending that people actually come to us.
You have that in your regulations now,
Okay. So it's a recommendation, but it's not a requirement.
correct?
Okay. Because I was going to say, I only remember one person really doing that.
Correct.
Okay, right? I mean, it
In
was,
the last 2.5 years,
we had the people that are going to do down on, what's it?
Iron Horse.
Iron
On Iron
Horse.
Horse.
They came and pitched.
Yeah.
That's the
Still
only,
waiting for him to make it.
I know, but that's the only people that I can
Yeah,
remember, right? That actually came
Yeah, I
ahead.
think it's pretty common.
but
Who
it's the
came
only
to
time
us
it's happened
before?
in 2 years, and
On-
over 2.5
on
years.
lot-
Before that, it happened a lot more frequently.
What was
some
that?
as- on larger developments, it's more common before they spend thousands of dollars of resources to find out you don't want open space, you'd prefer a fee, or the open space they were potentially
Yep.
proposing or thinking about, you would prefer something different before they finalize road layout, drainage, and catch basin location. Sometimes they would show you a cul-de-sac versus a through road, or a horseshoe, or a lollipop, or something different, and they enter into those discussions earlier. A lot of times it's when there's significant road infrastructure, and there's a significant cost associated with the design of that infrastructure. You don't necessarily see it on 2, 3, 4 lot subdivisions unless there's
So the
some
bigger
component
projects.
of
Okay.
open space or donation that they want to have that discussion with you.
Can
It's
I
been
say-
my experience when infrastructure and roads are involved.
You're taking it out because you say submission of a mandatory preliminary application is not authorized, and yet it doesn't seem that it's mandatory here. It was,
It's recommended.
it's encouraged.
The submission of a concept, in your existing regulations, submission of a concept plan is encouraged for all subdivision requests and required for all parcels of land containing 15 or
Oh,
more acres
sorry.
unless
Okay.
waived by the town.
And then you took
Where's that?
the bottom part and
The
put
required
it
is
into
right
section
there.
B,
Yes.
That word right there.
okay?
What, I'm sorry, so Holly, what was your question though?
I didn't see the required, I saw the
Oh,
encouraged.
gotcha.
Let's go on to section 8.
With regards to section 8, submission of subdivision submission requirements, in most aspects, you're in B, on the left-hand side of the page, you have all these call-outs for things. Those can be covered just by our application form and don't necessarily need to be called out. Those are items we would have as part of the application form. And in reality, you can modify the application form and update it, and it's not a regulatory change versus having a list in your regulations. By simply saying, when you submit an application, you need to fill out the application form as provided by the department. You have a little more flexibility on modifying those requirements as time goes on versus the standard list. In addition, in the submission part, we pulled in the requirements for the public hearing up front. Again, it's mandated if it's a re-subdivision, but in any aspect, you can hold a public hearing on any application, even if it's not a re-subdivision. The primary difference between the two is if it's not a re-subdivision, you have 65 days to conduct your business, with one extension, one or more extensions not totaling more than 65 days. So yeah, but if it's not a mandated public hearing, you have 130 days to conclude your business. If it is a re-subdivision, it's 65, 35, 65, with 65 days worth of extensions at any point in time. A lot of
not stated
commissions
here,
lose
though,
sight of
right?
the fact, well, we're gonna have a public hearing on a subdivision, we have extra time. You do not have any extra time. So we're trying to pull that up front in the process.
But you don't say that here, correct?
It's driven by statute.
Okay.
Again, if we put it here clearly in your regs and statutes change.
Yes,
we
then
have
it's,
to do
yeah,
a text
yes,
amendment.
exactly.
Jamie, in the original
never
B,
keep track of all the
section
time for
8,
this also.
sorry, section 8, part C, this point about road centerline staking, has that disappeared? Or is that included on the application? Part C.
We will roll that right into the application form.
Okay, section 9. If I remember correctly here, Jamie, we asked staff to go through the submission requirements, the plan requirements, and bring them up to date,
Yes.
right? With technology and, anything else that governs what's required.
Correct, and this is where we're trying to clarify that on the right-hand column, that your general requirements are, 10 copies, A2 standards for survey accuracy for horizontal, T2 for topographic, when there's development, laying out, again, what the overall map requirements are, what's expected on a cover sheet, what's expected on a reference map, what's expected on a boundary survey map, walking through right to the site development plans and clearly laying out where that information is required and should appear to try and get you more consistent plans. right through the construction plans, as well as erosion sedimentation control. And again, trying to organize it a little more concise than having it in different sections of the regulations.
Okay, so is this staff's final proposal?
There should be one more vet through the engineering department, through Jeff Shea, and we have not completed that. I wanted some comfort level from the commission before we modified the construction documents. We also do, and it may be faceted in two steps, Mr. Rice, we do have funds within the department to update the public improvement specifications as part of the subdivision regulation update. So again, this would be something low-hanging fruit that Mr. Shea may be able to say is good for a 6 to 12-month period to correct some of the deficiencies in our existing regulations, with a more comprehensive look at it in, we'll say, 12 to 24 months.
All right, so in general, I'm in agreement with the proposals made so far. So I'd say, please continue with the staff review.
And we'll have engineering look at the plan and profile section and
Yep.
engineering requirements. Okay.
Yep.
Can it-
Questions?
On the section where we've got 9.
Yep.
It starts on the left with A general, and then on the right, where it's got A general requirements. Is the right the new one?
Right is new, left is existing.
Okay, that's,
And really what the left side says is you need this information, and it's a host of different places, and where on the maps does it occur? There's also issues here of when do you require a high standard A2? There's also language in here that you can use interpolated United States Geographic Service topo, which means you take topo off of our GIS system and you put it on your subdivision map. You can't build or design to that standard.
right.
It was surprising to find that in Simsbury's regulations, and most municipalities, even very small ones, have A2, T2. And again, as I discussed with you, if you had a 100-acre tract and you were proposing to divide that 100 acres into 2, and the front 10 acres were being developed and the back 90 acres had no proposed development on, there is language in here that would allow the applicant to do a high standard of survey for that front 10 acres and a lower standard on the back 90. And same thing, if you're doing a 2-lot subdivision, was 100 acres, and you are leaving an existing farmhouse or farm and dividing out a new house lot of 2 acres or 4 acres, again, you have the ability to require that high standard on the new lot being created, and the balance is already an existing lot, and you have the ability to require a lesser standard there. And that's the norm in the industry.
That makes sense. On section 9, the third page of section 9, I just want to point out to you that the numbering, on the right side, the first letter is G, and you'll notice the next section goes back to E
E,
and
okay.
climbs up from there.
Yeah.
Because I know when you start cutting this stuff up and putting it elsewhere, it's going to get confusing.
It is one of the quirks of Word, of going back and looking at,
If they were all done the
G
right
was
way,
there,
you
and
can just-
why is E now E versus
Yeah.
sequential, so thank you.
In Word, if you just change the E, the rest of them will change after it, probably, so.
But then if we
Yeah.
make an amendment to A through G, it doesn't get carried through
Yeah,
again.
nice.
And in essence, that, as we develop this list, then you go subsequent to that, but thank you, Rich, I appreciate that.
And you're missing a J.
Again, we'll look at that consistency.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Giving myself
Okay,
credit.
Jenny, you got your marching orders, okay? Go ahead
Okay.
and take it up with engineering.
We will have staff continue to work on this.
Thank you. Okay. Any correspondence or anything?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
No? Any potential applications on the horizon?
Not on the subdivision round. So, not at this point in time. A few very preliminary conversations, but nothing beyond that.
Commissioners, any other comments, questions?
I have a
Very
question.
happy to participate in this meeting, thank you.
I do have a question for Jamie. Is there any progress on the Climax Road proposal?
No new information to give you.
No information,
The town did submit briefs as requested by the judge. He has 2 to 3 months to make a decision.
Oh.
And when did we do that?
You,
January?
early to mid-fall, there should be a decision.
Any word on the solar farm?
It's still under appeal, but the town is in discussions with the developer about meeting a certain number of criteria that the town would prefer to see in their site development plans.
And I know this is just out of the blue, but is it totally sayonara to the road that had been originally envisioned running through that area?
The road is not part of their approved plans by the siting council.
And is that not part of our concerns?
It's not part of the approved plans by the siting council.
Means you can't say anything else.
Oh, is that what it means? I mean, because if we're in talks with the contractor to make amends, is that something we'd be in talk with? I still worry about this, you know.
Can't do it if it's not in
Future
the
people in
plan.
Simsbury are gonna wonder why we didn't give them that alleviating road when that had been in the previous POCDs for quite a number of years. You know, to take the,
Want to say it one more time, Jamie?
Can't discuss it.
Again, the town has that decision by the siting council under appeal.
okay. But I mean, let me ask you one dumb question. Then what are we talking about them if we can't talk about anything?
What do you mean, who's we?
The town is.
Oh,
you
the
said town is-
town's in discussions.
Yeah, I gave you, the status update is the development was approved by the siting council.
Right.
So that's in theory. They are required to do it, what's called a D&M plan, which is the equivalent of a site plan that has to be submitted to the siting council. And the initial decision by the siting council was appealed by the town as well as 9 abutters. And the town has been in discussions with the developer with regards to additional criteria that the town would like to see in their plan.
And that's why I asked about the road. That's
not
not
it.
one of
That
the
wasn't
details.
part of
I'm
our
not at liberty
plan.
to speak to that matter.
Okay.
So are those legal discussions or are they?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So we can talk about trees and flowers, but not roads.
Not that road.
Okay, I'm just
Not even
I'm
that.
trying to understand.
Yeah, no.
So if something is in a legal discussion, then you don't open it up to public discussion, is that correct?
Correct.
Good try, Holly.
I'm just, as a planning commission member, I'm concerned about the future of this town. And without that road, we're gonna be vilified. Because there's so much congestion coming and there's a lot more coming with it.
Any other
Without
comments,
the road.
commissioners?
Hundreds of applications.
Move to adjourn?
Second, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously, meeting adjourned 8:06.